Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Welcome to the Jentry Podcast. We have an incredible guest today. Austin Walker is Economic Development Director of Abbeville County, South Carolina. And more than that, she is the mother of a son named Craig. She is an avid community developer. She has done more in college than I could even speak to, but she is a proud alumnus of Erskine in South Carolina. She's taken her time with her career, and she always put faith first. And that faith has led her through some incredible places. And she's also used mentors, people that have come before her that have really given her incredible outlook. And she's incredibly young and talented. And I'm just so excited. We were talking beforehand just how excited I am to be here. So Austin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was the best introduction I think I've ever had. Can you write my introduction for other people next time? No, that was wonderful, and I'm glad to be here. I love kind of the mission that you have with the Jentry Podcast, and I'm excited to see and hear from other people here in the future.
Nice. Well, we appreciate you, but I know I spoke about it a little, and I know I didn't do it justice because I got a chance to hear about your journey. But please, as my dad would always say, make it make sense. Just tell us how you got from Erskine to obviously running a county. Please.
Yeah. Well, first I gotta say, I did not know that Economic Development Director was a title or even a position. Back when I entered college, I thought that I was going to be a doctor because I just loved helping people. And so in college, I ended up meeting a really great professor who really liked to talk about calling and vocation and where those two mix and meet. Ultimately, I ended up with a political science degree, and through working at a local chamber and then at the city of Abbeville, I've now ended up here. And that is partly because I'm good at what I do, but also partly because I'm surrounded by people who love what they do and share their passion and are willing to share, and I'm willing to learn. So I'm excited to be the director. And today actually marks 1 year for me. It's great.
Well, congratulations on a year, well deserved, and that is quite the path that you've taken to get where you are. And I can't wait to learn more about all that entails. One thing that I'm very excited to learn about is how you guys create the strategic priorities for the county. Could you speak through that process of even how they're put together? That would be very helpful.
Yeah. So Abbeville County, I think I should start out with, is a rural county. We only have like 25,000 people in the entire county. And historically, when we've set priorities, we've really only set them for economic development. My predecessors have done really well with working with our partnership, our public-private board, to set those and to knock them out year over year. And when I came along, we needed a new economic development list of strategic priorities. But in some conversations that we had, we wanted to look a little bit broader and encompass a little bit more. Economic development nowadays is not just building a new spec building, having a trained workforce. It's having the housing, having the quality of life, all of the other factors that go into why business wants to move, what creates economic vitality. And so we're actually in the middle right now of redoing our strategic priorities through a strategic plan called Abbeville County 2035. We're in phase 2 of 4. So we're really deep in the community engagement phase. And so I'm really excited to see what those priorities will be for the entire county and what that looks like on the whole, and not just for a little sliver of economic development, how we encompass that through the rest of our county and even engaging our municipalities in that. I think that's probably unique to us. I've heard very little in my circles about really on the county level engaging the municipalities within the county to really determine what they want and how that fits into the larger plan. So we don't have specific ones right now, but we're working on them. Should be done by the middle of this year.
I think it's incredible. And from what you're telling me and what I'm hearing is you are truly taking a bottom-up approach. You're reaching out to all the community members, the entities within the county to make sure that the actual priorities that need to get accomplished are those that are put forth by the members of said county. So I love that. And I think that was one of the things that I resonated with when we spoke earlier. And as you're doing that, this reminds me of one of the issues, not issues, but a challenge for a lot of different counties, cities, and even towns is making sure that you're building an area that you can come out of college, get your first job, find an apartment, something that's affordable that you can live in. The next stage of your life, you have a child, maybe want to, the picket fence, 1.5 kids or 2.5 kids. And then that next stage of life where you have a little more flexibility, maybe your children are out the house, maybe you're starting to retire. So how are you engaging the different, let's say, stakeholders that exist along that gamut of different life circumstances?
Yeah. First of all, great point. I actually think that is at the core of what we're trying to do, is to make sure that our county is a place where everyone has a chance to live if they want to live here in Abbeville County. And so we've done the typical things that you would do. We have a survey out, and we have engaged people one-on-one. We've engaged them in group settings, and we've tried to use every tool in our toolkit, from mailing individual postcards to every mailing address. We're really old school here in Abbeville County. So paper is still kind of king around here, but we also have things that are online that our citizens can engage with. And really, I think two of the things actually that we knew that we wanted to take a look at, because they are really the next generation that's going to be dominant in the workforce, are our juniors and seniors in high school, and then our college age students. So we have completed a survey and really an engagement session with, I think 48 juniors and seniors in our 2 local high schools. Really fascinating. I think we thought that we were going to hear, I don't want to live in Abbeville. It's too rural. That's not for me. I want to go to a big city. And that's really, we heard that a little bit, because to each their own. But what we really heard is, if given the chance, most of our juniors and seniors would actually like to live in Abbeville if their job opportunity that they were looking for existed within a reasonable driving distance. So that was really fascinating. And we found out several more key points there. We also are engaging our college students, some in our technical college. So those are usually students that have lived in the area already, but are, in that 18-24 range. And we're also engaging our 4-year institution, Erskine College, Go Fleet. We're engaging them. And those are usually, it's like 900 students at Erskine, and they're from all over the country and sometimes all over the world. So seeing what drew them to Erskine, but what would make them stay, and what they think Abbeville is lacking for them in their future. So that has been a really unique piece that I haven't seen in any of our previous economic priorities, community engagements, but is really taking a central focus in this particular county plan.
I think that is incredible. I've heard people reaching out to college students, maybe heard a couple people reaching out to seniors in high school. Have yet, and maybe this is my ignorance, but people reaching out to juniors in college. But when you think about it, it's Plan 2035.
Right.
Who is going to be, so they'll be 25, 26, 27, and 2035. These are going to be our working age individuals. These are going to be people building and growing families, the workforce. So I think it's very intelligent and thoughtful to engage those people. And, like you said it, you expect them to say one thing, we want to leave, or I want to go to Washington, D.C. or New York or wherever. But no, if you have a good engineering job for me, I'm staying. If you have a director job, I'm staying. So I think that is very smart. And I love that you guys are doing it. And it speaks to how much you truly care about that quality of life and that community development aspect. And I'm sure that comes from other parts of your career, and it shines through. And I think that is incredible. When you start to think of ways that you guys can capture, but work with those populations, whether it's workforce development, education, like what do you think the role of Abbeville County is to make sure that affordable housing is there, that there's upskilling opportunities, that there is childcare. That's one. I have an 8-month-old.
Yeah.
So So how do you think the role of Abbeville County is in that?
Yeah. I will say that I think historically you've seen across the nation, counties specifically take a hands-off approach to some of those extraneous things, whether it be workforce development, addressing childcare issues, housing. But I think we're moving into this era where we see a need for local governments to really have a voice and to make it easier for affordable housing to be built. And I'm not talking low income housing. I'm talking about housing for the people who work in the community. You know, if our average hourly wage is $21 an hour. And so if we don't have houses that fit that demographic, where are they living? They're living somewhere else where they can find that housing that's affordable for them and then having to drive in. And do we really want a 30-minute drive to work? No, we want to live where we work. It's really starting to resonate with local governments and Abbeville specifically that we have to take a more hands-on approach to attracting the type of housing, making it more accessible for childcare facilities to get off the ground. Is it building a spec building for a childcare center instead of building a spec building for an industry? Are there innovative ways that we haven't thought of before? And then really using our collective power as cities and counties to advocate for that at the state level too, so that the state can provide funding for areas that need these things. You know, housing is an issue everywhere. Childcare is an issue everywhere, but are we spending the money where the issues are? I guess is ultimately the question, and that's for everyone to decide for themselves. But I think those are really now starting to become areas where county, specifically economic development offices, are starting to look to say, hey, we're not just bringing a new industry and not caring that there's not enough housing. Like, we hear that housing is an issue and we're working with developers, we're working with our state government to figure out the best way forward.
I think you bring up some great points. At one point in time, it was that laissez-faire kind of hands off, but it bleeds through into everything. One thing you brought up was bringing in industry. You can't bring in industry if you don't have an educated workforce. And with new industry, you need people to take care of children while people are at work. So yeah, that quality of life and that holistic approach to local government, I think, is definitely what's going to be in vogue now and more so as we go into the future. And I think you're so thoughtful about it. On that, I will ask, because bringing in new industry is important. What are some of the tools in your tool belt that you use? Anything from communication and speed of getting permitting to tax abatement and incentives such as that. What are some of the ways that you've seen effective in bringing new industry out?
Yeah. So I'll just address the elephant in the room. Incentives are one of those things that everybody wants to talk about, but that usually in a conversation with an industry that usually comes way later. So I'm going to leave it for way later, but I did want to put that up front. I think for us in Abbeville County, what we can pride ourselves on is the fact that because we are smaller, because we have a little bit more flexibility, we can actually respond very fast. We are known for our hospitality around here. One of the things that people say when they come to Abbeville is that the people are amazing, like the atmosphere, and it starts for us in this office. The first time we have a potential industry interface with us, we want them to feel that and see that through us. And then once they site visit, once they get here, we want them to see that in our community as well. So I think that is one of those things that kind of sets us apart. Sometimes though, in economic development, we don't get that first interface. A lot of times we're filling out what's called RFIs, requests for information. These come from site consultants or industries themselves, and they really want to know the nuts and bolts of, do you have enough power available for me? Do you have enough water? Do you have enough gas? Do you have enough land? What does your land use plan look like? All of those things. And so making sure that we have product available and ready at all the stages so that we know that we've identified land that's been kind of undisturbed, but is probably big enough for a large development. Having land that has access to rail, having some land that maybe has already been graded, and then maybe also having several sites that have buildings on them. So having something that might fit kind of any stage of a potential look is something that we are focused on here. We really want to help speed to market. And so we have a great building and codes department. We work really closely together. They also happen to do our zoning. Again, small town, we kind of wear multiple hats. And so on that side, we hold us to any county in the nation, and we're great. And so that's something we also pride ourselves on, is how quickly we can work with not only the industry, but their contractors and work with them to get a building stood up or upfit a building. And what I will say, I'll brag for them on a second. We have a industry upfitting a building right now. We sold them our last spec building, and we were over there just the other week doing a site visit, and the contractors just could not stop singing the praises of our building department and how they were flexible but fair, like willing to work with them, but also holding them to, what the standards are. And with that, they started construction, and they are planned to be finished in like 5.5 months. Like, that's kind of unheard of, but the construction company had their nuts and bolts together when they came in ready to start, and we were willing to work with them and be flexible and prioritize getting their permits through. So we think in 5.5, 6 months that they'll be ready to open here in a minute. And then also, we have great working relationships with our electric and utility providers. The co-op is big here in South Carolina, and they were also praised in that meeting that we had with our industry about how fast they were to respond to calls. And so I think that level of service is just it's not something you get everywhere. And we are open for business. And so we want to make sure we reflect that in everything we do. Incentives, we do obviously incentivize. In a county like Abbeville, in South Carolina, you have statutory and discretionary incentives. So statutory are those incentives that are by law something you just get after a certain investment or a certain number of jobs or a certain amount of exports at the port. Then you have discretionary, and the state has discretionary incentives to give, and they base that on kind of 4 things. And then on the local level in South Carolina, we do a property tax incentive, and we can also give some credits and things like that. But honestly, that never really makes a company look at us, but it's usually the icing on the cake at the end, especially when we know we want a project. We can often get them past the finish line with an incentive, but usually it's on the front end, who we are, the place we're in, how well we work with our technical colleges, the resources we give them. That's really what wins projects for us.
Understood. And I think you laid it out correctly. It's the nuts and bolts is the hospitality that you provide, and the ice cream itself is the speed and the efficiency of your permitting, efficiency of your construction team, efficiency of the coating, and then the icing on the cake, icing or the sprinkles on the ice cream would be the incentives. And I think you laid that out perfectly. And, you can promise people the world, but if they don't have flexibility enough to make sure there's water, power, there's actual land and sites to actually to come in, then it means nothing. On the incentives, I do want to just kind of check, how do you track? It sounds like there was some metrics that people need to hit before they can even unlock the incentives, but is it a incentive, or do you have incentives in which, okay, once you hit 200 jobs, you get XYZ amount of money, or is it based on the amount of tax revenue you bring? Like, what are the typical incentives, and how do you kind of track those?
Yeah. Preface this by saying incentives look different in different states. So this is really just for South Carolina. But in South Carolina, the incentives really start at a capital investment amount of $2.5 million. That can include land, building the building, and machinery and equipment. And we look at that investment over 5 years. So whatever that investment total will be over 5 years is kind of where we look at. So that total dollar amount is something we take into account. The other thing we take into account, how many jobs are being created. The third thing is what that wage of those jobs look like. So are they higher than the county average? I would say that pretty much anything that gets incentivized, that average wage is higher than the county average, because the whole point is to continue to level up the tax base, but also to help bring our community upward. And you can only do that through raising wages. So that's the third thing. And then, on the local level, we do what's called a fee in lieu of taxes, where we essentially get the assessment ratio down to between 4% and 6%. Taxes are really different across states, so it's kind of muddy to talk about sometimes, but that 4 to 6% is then times by a county's millage rate. One thing that we have a tool in our toolbox is to actually lock that millage rate into whatever it is right now. Millage is basically how we determine how much money a county has or can have based on how much property is in a county. And then, so we can lock that millage rate, and then we can also give credits back to the company. It's something we call SSRCs, Special Source Revenue Credit. Sometimes we can give credit to a company, so basically giving them part of the money they would pay back to them over 5-10 years as kind of a, maybe not money up front, but money they would definitely know that they would have to spend, but won't have to spend in the first 5-10 years, the infancy of their life here in South Carolina. And then we also are sometimes able, if maybe, let's say that water line that they needed wasn't big enough, we can actually, instead of doing a special source revenue credit, we can do a special source revenue bond, where the county is actually able to say, this company is going to bring in X amount of dollars over the next 10 years. And with that money that they're going to bring in, we can actually go ahead and pay for the water line that they need to run to their building. So basically we use it to guarantee that we'd be able to pay back the loan so that we can help get that project across the finish line.
It seems like from the state or the state to county to local level, you guys are using all the tools in the toolkit. And I think that's impressive that for somebody in the local community, all they want to know is that you guys are utilizing their tax dollars effectively. And it sounds like you're focusing on the quality of life. The project's not even gonna get greenlit if it's not and raising the average dollar amount of wages. So I think you're really, really key in that. And one of the reasons we do this podcast is because really big on communication, and there's a lot of great work that's being done with people like yourself and other economic developers, county managers, city managers, mayors all across America that aren't being communicated and voiced. So sometimes it feels like the local government is just this big block of people and it's us versus them, but it's surely not that. So I want to ask, how are you communicating things like a successful win of bringing business to the community, or communicating a successful strategic growth planning process? And one thing I do know is you have been very successful in social media and on LinkedIn. I think you won an award, I thought I saw. So yeah, I'd love to hear how you specifically, and then also how the county is communicating to community members.
Yeah, I think on the whole, economic development, local governments haven't done a great job at telling the story of, hey, what do they do on a day-to-day basis? Like, it's this big thing kind of off in the distance, and it looks like there's gates behind it, and nobody can really know the secret sauce of how things get made. That's not local government. So we've done a poor job as an industry really communicating with our citizens about what we do day in and day out and how what we do affects them. And so it's kind of like my own personal mission to make sure that we have a citizenry that's educated on what we're doing and can actually be advocates for us out in the community. I say in Abbeville County that Facebook is kind of where everything goes down. You know who drove by what store at what time through our community pages on Facebook. You get some of the restaurant reviews, whether they're great or whether they're bad. You can check our community pages and find that out. So Facebook for us is a really integral part to our communication strategy, really taking into account of if we're not communicating our message, somebody else is communicating it for us. One thing we recently just went through a Hurricane Helene at the end of 2024, and nobody thought it was going to be as bad as it was this far up the coast. And like, I wasn't on standby. I wasn't in the room as kind of like a PIO to do some of the social media stuff. When the power went out, I didn't have access to internet. Everybody was using, their G, and when everybody's using 5G, it's not really 5G. And so I couldn't put any messages out there on our Facebook. And we had a few come through, but what I found when I got back into the office about 3 days later was people started making up what we were doing because they couldn't see us. And so being out in front of some of those stories and some of those messaging is really important. Letting people know, hey, we're going to be tearing up Main Street to redo a water line, but here's why it's important. And here's why we're doing it when we're doing it, because we wanted to make sure we spent your tax dollars right. We're tearing up Main Street now so the SCDOT can come in right behind us and repave the road. So we're not messing up work that SCDOT has already done. Just those little things are very important, I have found, in our community. It's not going to work in every community, but I think making it relatable to why they should care is important for us. Did I answer your question?
Definitely. I think the heart of it was, how are you communicating to the community members? And you did exactly what I was thinking, because oftentimes I'm seeing with local government, it's two populations of people that really get the most communication. It's the squeaky wheel, people that have an issue, or people that need something and have like something that they want. And so those are two voices that often get the most communication. But it's your your average community member that needs the communication, like you said, to talk about what's going on Main Street, and this is affecting my commute. Like, why is this affecting my commute? Something as drastic as Hurricane Helene. What's going on? What are you guys doing? Like, communication is so important. And, when that population of people, not the people that need something, but the population of people that angry, they're the loudest voices because they're passionate about it. And if you're not addressing your somebody else is going to be the owner of that narrative. And I think what you do is impressive and important in the fact that when you're speaking consistently with the community and they see you as a human and not just as an economic development director, and they see the local government as humans working for them to serve, even if something goes bad, you've built up enough capital with them to say, like, hey, this is what went wrong, and we're trying our best. And they know, 'cause they've seen you trying your best. So I think you answered that incredibly. I'll go to something that may be a little bit easier to answer. What is an initiative that you have coming up that you're particularly proud of, and what is the impact of that initiative?
I love this question because one thing we are launching, and we'll actually be having our first meeting/retreat this week, is Leadership Abbeville. A lot of places have this kind of leadership class for their community, but we're kind of taking it and turning it on its edge a little bit, and because a lot of those are really to just get a person acquainted with the community. They usually have to do some kind of community project, community service. And all those things are great and good, and you need those. One thing that I found lacking, and this was kind of echoed in a previous economic development strategy, and this is the evolution and really the check mark to that previous strategy, was building more community leaders. And so what we're doing with our Leadership Abbeville class is this will be the first cohort, and we've actually partnered with Furman University's Centers for Innovative Leadership. These guys do leadership classes for Fortune 500 companies. When they talk about leadership, they talk about it on a large scale, but we've actually engaged them to talk and to partner with us in creating a curriculum to build better civic leaders. And so engaging in how, as a regular citizen, or maybe as a business owner or a manager in a company, how can you as a citizen actually engage on a civic level? And that doesn't mean you have to run for county council. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're going to give them the tools and toolbox to actually help create direction, alignment, and commitment, which is what we talk about in leadership. If you have those things and you can create those as a leader, it turns into leadership, and you can actually start to affect change, whether that's through nonprofit work or through local government work. A populace that knows what's going on in their community and how they can actually work to change or affect change. That's really the key for what we're doing here. And to my knowledge, I was told that there technically is not a definition for civic leadership in the academic world. And so we are actually working with Furman University to flesh that out over this program. And I'm really excited for the leaders that we're going to see. And we're not going to see the fruits of it right away, but 5-10 years from now, once we have 100 people who have gone through this class, I'm hoping that we'll see a leadership in the county, not just in county government, but across organizations, across businesses, that really have this unified vision of we can work together and we can accomplish things, and we can change the direction if we need to, and we can align people so that we're on the same vision. And I'm actually really very excited about that.
I can feel it, and I see why. That's an innovative program that's allowing the community to grow its own leaders, obviously with support of you, and then with Furman. But I'm super excited about it. I think you're kind of creating, like, not on purpose, but like some community advocates or local advisors. You have messages, like, I'm sure they're going to be creating communities, and you can kind of reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is how we're doing. So I think there'll be a nice feedback loop there. And I think it's very smart. Everything you said in the beginning of this, investing in the community. So I think that's a great initiative. And we always want to see the legacy and the long-term legacy. And it seems like with that, you're building a long-term legacy, like even how you said it, I'm not necessarily playing for 5 years from now, or, right now, but maybe 5 years from now. And just generally, how do you kind of see Abbeville County in, call it 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years? Like what's the trajectory in a perfect world? Like where are you headed?
Think on the macro level, we're going to see a world that looks a lot different than the world we're living today. With this mass migration into, cities, it kind of leaves places like Abbeville that are a little bit more rural at a crossroads. And I think this is where I get all my energy and my passion from, because we're really at kind of a precipice. We can either do what we've always done and let it up to fate. And I don't know that fate would be really nice. It probably, destroy communities. Or we can take hold of what makes our county unique and position it in this larger world where everyone wants to be in cities or suburbs. I think we'd be like tertiary in kind of that sphere with our relation to Greenville and Spartanburg, which are really growing. And then we're also in kind of that 85 corridor between Atlanta and Charlotte, also growing. We gotta be a respite for people who want to get away from big cities. And so I'm really excited. Some of the ideas that we heard in our community engagement sessions a few weeks ago really emphasize that Abbeville as a place is important. Like the reason people move here is the way that this place makes them feel. They feel more connected to nature. They feel more connected to people. And we don't ever want to lose that. I see in 5 years, in 10 years, in 2035, a place where families thrive, where we're giving as a community families the tools to succeed. I also see Abbeville positioned as a place for entrepreneurs and a place where small businesses can really grow. We have several of those stories started as family companies. Now they're international. They're going to Saudi Arabia and they're going to Ireland, and their products are across the world, right? So we have some of those stories that started right here in Abbeville. And what's funny is our students actually recognize that. And that was something they said, like several of them, I want to start a business and I can do it right here because A, I don't have as much competition, but also B, like there are tools and success stories around me to help make sure that I grow. So I think we'll see kind of that small business entrepreneur field grow. We already have a high percentage of small businesses, but I think that's going to grow as we move into the future. And then the last thing I see Abbeville County is in the next 5-10 years is a place for people to go to get away, whatever that looks like: hunting, fishing, lake life, coming to a small opera house, doing a history tour, whatever that is. We probably have something for someone here in Abbeville County, even if it's just for a weekend. COVID, we saw people wanting to escape big metropolises, even if just for a weekend, and Abbeville became that place for a lot of people. And so keeping those families coming back, and then finding new ones who want to explore what we call a pretty near perfect place, kind of untouched by time, but also really into connections. I think that's something we're going to lean into over the next few years and really start to capitalize on.
I love that. I can't wait. I got to come to Abbeville County and check it out. I'm pretty near perfect. Now you sold me. I got to come down there. Can you speak to I'm an entrepreneur myself. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Can you kind of speak to some of the tools that you spoke of, and some of the reasons that you guys have such a high percentage of small business?
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons we have such a high percentage of small business is our proximity to places with bigger businesses. It is a little bit of a drive, probably 30 minutes to get to a larger county, a larger community. So a lot of people see opportunity there to start something that's closer to home, and it's worked. The other thing that I think really highlights how Abbeville County sees small businesses as an important part of our ecosystem, both the county, the city of Abbeville, and even private businesses, they all have incubators of some sort. So we have office-based incubators, retail-based incubators, and even manufacturing incubators. So we really know that first 1 to 5 years is super important in a business's life. And how many businesses go out of business in the first 5 years is astronomical. But can we as a county, as a city, as private business owners help people who want to start these businesses and give them the tools to succeed? All of our incubators pretty much require that obviously lower the market rate rent, but almost all of them also require that you engage with our Clemson Extension or our chamber and some of our other partners in our ecosystem to go through business classes if you don't have a business degree. to learn about small business finance, to really get in touch and get in tune with marketing and how your market is working in this area. And so we want to give them the tools to succeed on the front end so that they're here 20, 30, 50 years from now.
I think now it makes sense, like, while you guys are doing well. And I know you're helping a small business in that 1 to 5 years where everything is just so do or die. They appreciate that. And that's how you create long-term partners. So it's like when they're flying to Dubai and they're getting those big contracts, they know their roots and they want to stay and employ in the community. So I applaud you. And I think that's smart, from a traditional small business to retail to even manufacturing. Like, that is really, really impressive. And I definitely see why you guys have such a strong small business culture. Now, I always say everything can't be roses and rainbows. There has to be something or things that are tough. So something like maybe a challenge or something. I always say, like, if you could just like snap your fingers and change, that would make your day better, or that would make the county a better place for community members.
That's a hard one. That's a really hard question. I think, though, I would say what makes us great being rural also presents its own set of challenges, right? It means we have more limited resources. We have less people willing to step up and take leadership roles. That's why we're trying to create a pipeline. But I think really in that limited resource category, not just people, but time and money. If I could just snap my fingers, if I could create a few more hours every day and maybe a little bit more income, we could do a lot of really great things here in Abbeville.
That's incredible. I think you said it correctly. The things that make you great, like the things why people are leaving cities to come to Abbeville while they're enjoying the lake life and the opera house and all the different things, being close to nature. They come with, everything. It has a side. Well, so it may be a challenging side of that, but then there's such a huge benefit of that. So I think you outlined that incredibly. Now, before we end, is there anything that you want to say to our viewers, or just any last words about Abbeville?
I hope everyone, if you get a chance to visit, will come visit Abbeville County or another small community like Abbeville near where you live. No, I encourage everyone, if you're not in government, and I'm assuming this podcast is going to hopefully reach some people who aren't in government on their day-to-day job, that you get involved, whether it's going to a council meeting, whether it's volunteering for a board. Like, all of those things are important to the vibrancy of your community. And really, if you want to be a part of change or be a part of continuing to make a place great, like, get involved.
And yes, the point of our podcast is to demystify local government and local politics to the average community member. And so everybody's not going to be an economic developer, but everybody can get involved. And I think you said it so eloquently. There may not even be a definition of civic leader. So I think a civic leader is somebody that cares and is trying to make a change and so trying to support their community. So for all the civic leaders out there, thank you for listening to the Jentry Podcast. Austin, thank you once again. She is the Economic Development Director of Abbeville County in South Carolina, and this is her 1-year anniversary. So I'd like to say congratulations again, and thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great one.